How do you know if you're eligible for workers' compensation? A couple of things that you would want to know is, were you injured in the course and scope of your employment? And then, does your employer subscribe to Texas workers' compensation? Those would be the two primary questions that you're going to want to ask or know to determine whether you're eligible for workers' compensation. If you're on break or you're still on the clock, it could be that the breaks and any activity that you're doing that's in the normal course and scope of your employment, that would be considered as a part and covered by the workers' compensation program. The workers' compensation program in Texas is highly specialized, and so in order to really know whether you have a case, you would want to talk to an attorney who specializes in workers' comp. Generally, those attorneys only do workers' comp because they have to handle a large volume in order to make those cases feasible. If you want to know whether your employer has workers' compensation, generally you can probably ask somebody in the Human Resource Department. The Texas Department of Insurance does have a directory to know whether an employer subscribes to Texas workers' compensation. If your employer does not subscribe to Texas workers' compensation, they may have what's called an injury insurance plan or an injury disability insurance plan that's considered private. And that would be the program that you would fall under in order to make a claim for your benefits for the injury. If there is negligence involved in your injury, then you would not be restricted from suing your employer under the civil laws of practice and remedy for your injuries. That is one of the benefits of an employee if their employer does not participate in Texas workers' compensation. In other words, an employer has tremendous protection if they subscribe to Texas workers' compensation against lawsuits by their employers if they're injured as a result of negligence by a co-employee or the employer. Employers are not required to participate in workers' compensation. It's not mandatory, but they are incentivized to participate in Texas workers' compensation because they then are shielded from civil lawsuits by their employees. They are penalized by not subscribing to Texas workers' compensation by being subject to civil liability, as well as not having the full defenses that would be available to a typical entity if they were sued for negligence. For example, they're not able to argue or have a defense of proportionate responsibility to lessen their liability.